Hello, good morning. After a very long period of time, we are meeting. That is exactly after 2 months. We have completed some part of paper note number 9, that is inorganic chemistry, up to 4th November 2020. Today is 4th January 2021. So, after a long period of time, that is about 60 days of vacation, we are meeting today. So, I would like to recall the part that we have already covered in the last lectures, which we have completed up to November. So far, we have completed three important topics which are very important from the examination point of view. The first topic that I have completed, which was very interesting to study, and some students from your class, they have also delivered the seminars on this topic also. The topic is metal ligand bonding in coordination complexes. In this topic, we have studied two theories of coordination complexes, where first we have studied crystal field theory, that is CFT, and secondly we have studied the molecular orbital theory. In these two theories, we have studied how to calculate the CFAC in terms of high spin and low spin complexes. We have also assigned whether a particular complex is a paramagnetic or a diamagnetic depending upon the number of unpaired electrons those are present in a particular coordination complex. In this regard, we have studied the different cases from D1 to D10. I have also circulated the notes of this topic that will ensure you to for the better understanding of this topic. We have also conducted three tests based on the octahedral, tetrahedral and square planar complexes, how the splitting takes place. In terms of crystal field theory, we have also studied the Jahn-Taylor distortion, where we have assigned that the odd electron system, particularly D9 cases, they possess some different geometries with regard to the Jahn-Taylor distortion. Then in this topic, we have studied the molecular orbital theory. We have seen the molecular orbital theory for COF63 minus, CONH63 plus, and the nickel complex also. So, in these cases, we have constructed the MO diagram, and in these MO diagrams, we have seen that how a particular complex is a paramagnetic, whether it possesses a color or it is a colorless. For example, we have seen in the beginning the first diagram of TiH263 plus, that is hexaecho titanium plus 3 ion. In this case, we have seen that due to the homo-LUMO separation, that is energy difference between non-bonding and anti-bonding electrons, that is very small enough. So very less amount of energy is required for the jumping of electron, and whenever there is a jumping or promotion of electrons takes place, there is a color that is observed that we call as a DD transition of electrons, and we have seen that the hydrated solution of titanium is purple violet in color. This is attributed due to homo-LUMO separation that is very, very small. We have also seen certain other diagrams also, where we have come across the paramagnetic and the diamagnetic behavior also, and we have seen how the 9 significant orbitals are classified into 4 different classes, that is A1G, T1U, EG and T2G. And while studying these diagrams, we have shown that the T2G group of orbitals, that is dxy, dyz, and dxz. These are the three orbitals which are having their orbital lobes in between the coordinate axis. So there is a no question of a repulsion, and as according to molecular orbital theory, we have seen that the pi bonding or pi charactered orbitals may not be considered in the molecular system. So these are the group of three orbitals. They simply transfer to the molecular system and they remain non-bonding. This we have seen. So if you look at all the MO diagrams that we already seen, you will come across whatever I have told you just now. That is true for all these cases. I always make a statement uh, that the chemistry that I am teaching you is very simple to understand, but it is very difficult to reproduce because there is a lack of technical words while reproducing the inorganic chemistry on paper. So you must be very well familiar with the technical words, and if you want to be with familiar with all these technical words, then you have to read out all the notes very carefully so many times so that you will be familiar with all the technical words, and it is very easy. I know that you can understand whatever I taught you during my online lectures, but I assure you that if you try to read and try to reproduce whenever possible, you have to reproduce every part, then and then you will get a confidence, and it will be easy from the examination point of view to reproduce and to write the papers. So this is about the metal ligand bonding in transition metal complexes. Then we have started with a very important topic, that is metals, semiconductors, and superconductors. The topic was very interesting to study, and we have covered the physical properties of the metals. We have studied some 8 to 9 properties where uh, we have seen the properties of metals, that is a malleability, ductility, electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, and so on. We have also seen in more details the lustrous nature of the metals, because metals, the surface of metal that appears to be very shiny, and we have found that due to jumping of electrons, and again they when they jump back to the ground state, they emit certain light of a particular wavelength, and because of which the surface of metal that appears to be shiny, this property is known as a luster. Then we have studied the theories of bonding in metals, where we have seen the theory that is known as a band theory of metals and the free electron theory of metals. We have seen these two theories of metals also, where the theories, they show how the metals are responsible for the thermal and electrical conduction. Then we have proceed further with the classification of solids into conductors, semiconductors, and insulators. This part is very very important from the examination point of view, because so many times the question on the classification of metals that is asked, and we are familiar how the solids are classified into all these three parts. Then we have studied that the in details the superconductors, that is ceramic superconductors, and the applications of ceramic superconductors that we have seen. In while studying these applications, I have quoted that nowadays uh, the electronic devices or gadgets are there in the market. These are the devices right from our mobile to laptop, computers, and the TV sets. All these electronic devices, they utilize all the superconductors and the semiconductors in one or the other form. I also quoted while studying the applications of superconductors that the nowadays in India bullet trains are running. Bullet trains have very high speed, that is about 550 kilometers per hour. That is possible in abroad, that is in foreign countries, but in India We have reached up to 350 kilometers per hour. These bullet trains, they are running on magnetic levitation technique. I have also shown you the bullet train uh, from China, where I have visited Shanghai in the year 2014, where I have shown how the speed that is achieved by a bullet train, and this is all again the outcome of the superconductors. That means they uh, the train, they run without friction or without resistance, and because of which they have very high speed. So this is all about the second topic. The third topic, which is very simple, that we have covered, is a catalysis topic. In this topic, we have defined the term catalyst and the phenomenon what is known as a catalysis. Then we have classified the catalytic reactions into heterogeneous and homogeneous type of catalytic reactions. We have also seen that how the heterogeneous and homogeneous type of catalytic reactions are classified into 6 different types that we have already covered. Then we have completed the characteristic features of the catalytic reactions. Then we have covered that according to definition, that any substance which speeds up or enhances or increases or alters the speed of a chemical reaction, and which remains chemically intact at the end of a chemical reaction, this is known as a catalyst, and the phenomenon is known as a catalysis. So we have concluded the substance which acts as a catalyst that remains intact, and the same substance could be used for years together, that this is the reason just by mere presence of these substances the reaction is brought about. That means the reactants are converted into products without consuming the substance that acting as a catalyst, and the substance that act as a catalyst is not consumed during the course of a catalytic reaction. So this is the reason that the same catalyst could be used for years together. Then we have studied about the mechanism of catalysis by considering two important theories. One theory that we have considered is the intermediate compound formation theory, and second theory that is known as the adsorption theory. So these are the two theories that we have covered during the catalytic type of reactions. And here I would like to again mention that the intermediate compound formation theory, that is possible only for homogeneous type of catalytic reaction. What is a homogeneous type of catalytic reaction? As we are aware that homogeneous type of catalytic reactions are those where the reactants and the catalysts both are in the same states of matter.
लेक्चर चलागा
Now, in homogeneous type of catalytic reactions, where we have studied that the reactants and the catalysts both are in the same states of matter, that is known as a homogeneous type of catalytic reactions. Here the catalytic reactions, those are classified under homogeneous type of catalytic reaction. These are the reactions in which the intermediate compound formation theory that is very fruitful. The second theory that we have studied is adsorption theory. This theory is particularly useful for those catalytic reactions which are under the category heterogeneous. We have seen the heterogeneous type of catalytic reactions are those where the reactants and the catalysts both are in two different states of matter. That means if the reactants are in gaseous state, the catalyst is in solid state. So here the adsorption theory that is very fruitful. So this theory gives us the idea about the mechanism of catalysis in heterogeneous type of catalytic reactions. And lastly, we have studied the applications of catalysis, that is industrial applications of catalysis. In this part, we have seen that nothing a single industry can run without the use of catalyst. So these industries uses these catalysts in some or the other forms under varying conditions of temperature and pressure. So in all these cases, in all these industries, the catalysts are used in some other forms under varying conditions of temperature and pressure, because every industry runs on two important principles. One principle, that is the quantity of the product, another is the quality of the product. So these are the two principles, and which are fulfilled because of the invention of the catalyst all over the world. So this is all about the catalysis. And after the completion of this topic, that is known as the catalysis, we have moved to a very important topic that we have covered some part of this topic that we have covered in the month of November, that is organometallic compounds or organometallic chemistry, where in this topic we have seen the definition of the organometallic compounds. Then we have studied the IUPAC nomenclature of organometallic compound. So lot of organometallic compounds are nowadays in the universe all over the world. Major work, that is major research work, that is the major research work that is carried out on these catalytic type of reactions, sorry, these organometallic compounds. So the question was arised that how to how to give a name for all these organometallic compounds. So there is a system that was developed universally so as to designate or to name all these organometallic compounds which are existing in the universe, in where the scientist E.C. Franklin, he has done a major contribution in inventing the organometallic compounds, because this scientist in the year 1848 he was working on organo arsenic compounds. He was synthesized the first organometallic compound that is known as a organoarsenic, that is HgAs, organoarsenic compound. When he was invented this particular compound, then he found that there exists certain different types of bonds between metal and the carbon atom that is present in the organometallic compounds, and hence he has contributed its major work in the invention of these organometallic compounds. So you should remember that E.C. Franklin, he has done major contribution in organometallic compounds or organometallic chemistry. In this topic, we have studied the alkyl and aryl compounds of the beryllium and aluminum, amongst which we have already covered the alkyl and aryl compounds of beryllium. The compound that we have already studied, that is known as the electron deficient compound. Why the compound is an electron deficient compound, that we have also studied. But as there is a lot of difference that we have covered, the part that is covered in the month of November. So it is very difficult to remember, because the compound that we have already covered, that was a electron deficient compound. How a electron deficient compound that is possible in organometallic compound, that we have already covered. But again, today I am going to give some glimpses of the formation of alkyl and aryl compound with the help of the 3C2E bond, that is electron deficient compounds. Now, in this regard, again, I would like to mention that the definition of the different organometallic compounds in simpler forms. Organometallic compounds are those where there exists a metal carbon bond. So organometallic means here one transition metal must be present, and one organic moiety or organic species or organic group must be present in all these organometallic compounds. So you must remember that while defining organometallic compounds, that organometallic compounds can be defined as the compounds which contains metal carbon bond. This is a basic requisite of the formation of organometallic compound, that there must exist metal and the carbon bonds in between the metal atom, that is a transition metal atom, and the organic group. The organic group may be methyl group, ethyl group, phenyl group, cyclopentadienyl group. So the requisite of the formation of the organic metal organometallic compound is that the metal atom along with the organic group or organic species. So the compounds which contain metal carbon bond are known as organometallic compounds. Now, what are the different rules? Those are assigned to give a particular IUPAC name for a particular organometallic compound. The first rule which states that if a metal atom that belongs to S block of the periodic table, what is the S block of the periodic table? We know that the first A group and the second A group, that is alkali metals and the alkaline earth metals, these are commonly regarded as the S block of the periodic table, where the last electron enters preferentially into 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and so on. Here, everywhere in these two groups, the last electron or incoming electron that preferentially enters into s atomic orbital. For example, if we take for instance the example of lithium, atomic number 3, the electronic configuration can be written as 1s2 and 2s1. So the third electron that has entered into s orbital. So this is a s block element. Now, if lithium has formed a organometallic compound, say for example with methyl group, then the lithium can form a compound named as Li4CS34. So Li4CS34, here lithium is a metal and CS3 is an organic moiety or organic group or organic species. To name any particular compound where the metal atom is preferentially from the S block of the periodic table, then we have to name all such compounds by using a substitute substituent names. What is the name of a substituent? Here, lithium is a metal, Li4 is a metal, and CS3 is an organic metal, organic moiety or organic group. Here, this is a methyl groups are nothing but these are the substituents which are attached to the metal, that is lithium. So the rule states that we have to give the name of the substituent. That means if four methyl groups are there, that means we have to give the name as tetra, that means 4 methyl lithium. So Li4CS34 can be named as the tetramethyl lithium. So whenever a metal atom which pertains to S block of the periodic table, we have to give the name of the substituent. So you must remember that while naming organometallic compound that has formed with particularly S block of the periodic table, either from one first A group or second A group, we have to start the name of all such organometallic compound with the name of the substituent. So you should quote that the organic metallic compound from S block of the periodic table, those are to be named from the names of substituent. For example, Li4CS34, tetramethyl lithium. So this is the first rule. So here I am running out of time. So I am going to end this meeting. You have to join the meeting again after 2 minutes by clicking the same link. So we'll continue again. Thank you very much. We are going to continue again by clicking the same link.